Spider-Man Far From Home is the sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, which came out in 2017. It's the third Marvel movie to come out this year. Holy shit, I just realized that. It's the however many films in Marvel that we've had. You guys know the number. I'm not good with the numbers. You guys know however many films this has been in Marvel. It stars Tom Holland once again back in the title role of Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. It stars Zendaya, however you fucking say her name. Jon Favreau is in this movie, so is Samuel L. Jackson, so is Kobe Smulders, so is Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. I'm gonna try to be as vague as I can about this movie because there are some twists and some turns and some things that you might not want to know going into it. It's been several months since Endgame. Spoilers for Avengers Endgame. Tony Stark died. Peter Parker is trying to pick up the pieces with his friends. He's trying to move on. He goes on a school field trip. While he's on the school field trip, he is recruited by Nick Fury and Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, to fight some elemental monsters that are terrorizing London. That is it. That is all I want to say because there's a lot to talk about with this movie, half of which I can't talk about because it would be spoilers. I am not the biggest fan of everything that the MCU has done with the character I love, Spider-Man. Everybody knows I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. Spider-Man is my favorite Marvel hero of all time. I'm not going to always be a fan of the things that they do, the directions that they take his character. I don't like every decision that they have made with Spider-Man in the MCU, and I'm gonna be honest, there are always going to be things about Spider-Man in the MCU, even in this movie, that I'm never gonna fully be able to get over, that I'm always gonna have some type of grudge, some kind of axe to grind over. Having said that, this movie was fucking awesome. Let me count the ways. One of the things I love about this movie right off the bat is that it feels just as much of a Peter Parker story as it is a Spider-Man movie. But don't get me wrong, Spider-Man is in this movie a lot and Spider-Man does some pretty badass shit. In fact, I will venture to say that Spider-Man is about 3 to 4 times more badass than he was in Spider-Man Homecoming. In terms of character, I love what they did with Peter Parker in this movie. They made his struggle real. They made his story relatable. They made me actually feel for him in this movie. Full disclaimers, yes, Tony Stark did die, and yes, Tony Stark's presence is all over this movie, but it doesn't overshadow the movie. There's a bigger point at hand, and I like that. I like the fact that Peter Parker, while he is a great superhero and he has all these incredible powers, he's also still a 16-year-old kid who sometimes wants to have a normal life and sometimes can't, and he's always struggling to balance the responsibility of being this huge hero as well as with all the normal shit he wants to do. I mean, come on, guys, let's keep it a buck. He's a 16-year-old in high school. What would you be thinking about if you're a 16-year-old in high school and you had superpowers? I mean, come on. You'd be thinking about ass. Isn't that what every 16-year-old thinks about? Maybe that's just me and Peter Parker. I don't know. I think I speak for most 16-year-old boys out there, is that it's just all about the pussy. It's all about the pussy. Even then, Peter just has stuff going on in his life. He has things that he's trying to move on from, things he's trying to get a break from, and I like the fact that this movie did such a great job at illustrating the duality between Peter Parker and Spider-Man, illustrating that personal struggle, and it was very relatable, and I related to him. Ergo, I cared more about him in this movie. I like what they did with him and MJ. Their romance in this movie was cute. Part of that is because it actually made Zendaya, who plays MJ, feel more like an actual character in this movie. Like in Homecoming, she was just there to like say funny stuff, and she didn't really matter until the end of the movie when you found out her initials were MJ. And their romance was nice. It was cute. I liked it. It leads to better things. I just know it. I'm not going to spoil it in case you don't want to know. If you know anything about Mysterio, if you've read any of the comics with Mysterio, if you've seen Mysterio in any other form of media, and you know that Jake Gyllenhaal did a pretty good job portraying Mysterio in this movie. It was vintage Quentin Beck. They did a good job at developing the relationship between him and Spider-Man, and they also did it in a way while also tying into the MCU mythology that I thought was really clever. In terms of the humor and the dialogue in this movie, I'll also say that was a step up from Homecoming. This movie was actually a lot funnier than I thought it had any right to be. I love the action sequences involving Mysterio. Like, there's just some very interesting, trippy shit they decided to do. Again, no spoilers. The action sequences and the visuals in this movie were incredible. Definitely some of the best that we've seen from Spider-Man on the big screen. In fact, I will venture to say that some of the best Spider-Man moments of all time on screen, live action or otherwise, come from this movie. Michael Giacchino, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Michael Giacchino, I'm gonna just call you Big G, Mike G. Yeah, Mike G, that's what we're gonna call you. If there's one thing I can praise about both Homecoming and Far From Home, is that the musical score is just, it's eggs on a tin. It's just beautiful, it's gorgeous. That actually is saying something because I've not been overly impressed with the musical scores from each of these MCU movies. The movie also has some twists and turns that I actually wasn't expecting, and it ends in a way where I'm just kind of like, what do we do now? Like, this just going forward, I'm just kind of curious how the MCU is going to handle some of this shit. Honestly, as somebody who walked into Far From Home with little to no expectations, even though I was hopeful for the best, Far From Home exceeded my expectations, and it gave me the kind of Spider-Man film that I hoped I would see. Doesn't mean the movie didn't have problems, though. I mean, come on, it's a Spider-Man movie. Every Spider-Man movie has problems. This movie's no exception. I thought the movie did get off to kind of a rocky start. Those first 20 minutes of the movie felt tonally a little bit off. It felt a little bit too silly in some parts. This movie also suffers from a problem of having dead weight, and what I mean by dead weight is that there are a lot of characters that pop up in this movie that don't really serve a function or a purpose other than to create humorous situations. Like, I wouldn't mind if these side characters were in the movie and their only purpose is to be funny, and they were actually kind of funny, but the humor for them wasn't as well executed as some of the other humor in the movie. I'm afraid to say it, but dead weight also applies to Samuel L. Jackson and Mariah Hill. Like, I just don't really get why they were in this movie. In fact, you could have removed them from the plot of this movie, and I don't know that the movie would be that much different. Like I said earlier, there's some Spider-Man stuff and some nitpicks that I have that I can't get into because it would be spoilers, but there's just some things as a diehard Spider-Man fan that I'm always going to have a problem with. I venture to say it's probably my favorite Marvel film of the entire year. Far From Home was everything I wanted this Spider-Man movie to be, and it belongs in the Superman Prime tier of this channel. Those are my thoughts on Spider-Man Far From Home. Tell me, so far going into Far From Home, what is your favorite Spider-Man movie of all time? Put that in the comment section below and let me know. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.